Hi, welcome back to Lauren's Kitchen and Garden. Let's head into the kitchen and I'm going to show you how to make the most comforting classic meals that there is, a hearty, rich beef pot roast. Today I'm going to show you how to take a simple cut of meat, fresh vegetables, and a few kitchen staples and turn it into a meal your whole family will love. So if that sounds like something that you're going to enjoy, go ahead, click like, click subscribe, and then hang out with me while I show you how to make the perfect Sunday pot roast, even though it's technically only Wednesday. All right, first thing first, before we even get started, you are going to want to turn that oven on and set it to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and get your meat out of the fridge and let that sit on the counter for at least about 20 minutes and up to 2 hours. You certainly don't want to put the meat out on the counter like overnight or anything unless it's frozen through and through and you need to thaw it out. But we don't want to be trying to get food poisoning today, right? And then what we'll do after that, while we're waiting for our meat to come to room temperature, we will chop up our fresh ingredients, which will be an onion about the size of a baseball or bigger. So I like a white or yellow onion for this. I suppose you could use red onion. That stuff gives me heartburn, so no red onion for me. I'm going to chop the ugly bits off the ends, and I'm just going to give it a rough chop. I'm not caring what these pieces look like too much because I'm going to put them right here in my pot. Pretty much the same as I do for every other recipe. We're chopping it into halves and then quartering it. Ugly pieces. They all cook down anyway. The ugly pieces go into, like the ugly end bits go into my compost bin. Same thing with the carrots. Ugly bits on the ends go into the compost bin. And then I'm going to chop the carrots up. And I'm going to put these in a separate bowl because I don't necessarily want soggy carrots. And if we cook these in the pot right off the bat, they're going to cook through too much and then they're kind of just mush. So I put these all in a bowl, the carrots and potatoes, until we're about an hour away from pulling the roast out of the oven. And then I'll throw them in at that point. So they're cooked through, but they're not mushy. All right, potatoes. Same thing as the onions. I'm going to chop it in half, and then I'm going to quarter it depending on how big that potato is. But I like my pieces to be about that big, 2-inch size pieces. And I'm going to put that in the bowl with my carrots so we can put them in the oven later. And I have probably the equivalent of 1.5 pounds of potatoes here. You can use more or less to your heart's content. Okay, next what we want to do is get our meat and get ready to start seasoning it. So to season the meat, I have some garlic powder. You can use fresh garlic, just chop it up real fine. I have some coarse salt. If you use fine salt, just use less. You're going to use your own judgment here, but I will give you a tip. If you are new to cooking, take from my mistakes. You can always add more salt at the end, but you cannot take it out. I don't care what YouTube video you find out there that gives you advice on how to make something less salty. It's not going to work. So start out less, add it at the end if you need it more to taste. So we'll use our garlic powder, our salt, some black pepper. I will use a little bit of rosemary and a little bit of dried thyme. And then we'll do all that. We'll get all that meat coated on that. So yeah, go gooey. Now, this is my cut of meat. This is a chuck roast, and it's about a 3-pound chuck roast. This will easily feed my family of 2 small children and 2 adults. Plus, I'll have leftovers for Kevin over there who's waiting for handouts, and maybe even leftovers for another night. So with a cut of meat like this, I don't know if you can see. Let me back it up a little bit. It's got a line of fat here. And that is just the muscle connective tissues. And I like to separate the meat at that point a little bit, like all the way through. I feel like the texture of the meat cooks better when I separate it there. And I'm actually just going to put that piece off to the side. I'll cook that up for Kevin later. Later, I said. If you don't know if you can see him in the corner there. He's waiting. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. There's another like line here. We could cut that. I'm just going to leave it. All right. And we're going to start seasoning. So I got my salt. I don't know if you can see, I'm not measuring the salt. I'm just getting a fine coating of coarse salt all around all sides of this meat. Okay, after you've got a fine layer of salt around the edges of your meat, you can just dump like a boatload of pepper. Don't do that. Don't do what I just did. Pour it in your hand first. Anyway, if you do what I just did, just kind of pick it up and dab it on the other piece. Try to spread it around evenly. And I mean, fortunately for me, I like my food a little peppery, but no one else in this house does. So what we'll do now my meat is, my hands are gooey. Just get in there. Again, I'm not measuring that black pepper. I'm going with my heart. For me, there is no such thing as too much black pepper. For you, it might be another one of those things like less is better, added at the end. But that's a good place to start. A little coating of black pepper and salt. And then I'm going to use much less garlic powder. So garlic powder is much stronger than fresh garlic. Go easy on it. You don't really want the garlic to be overpowering this meal. Just a little, maybe like a teaspoon to cover this whole piece of meat. Okay, and now that I've got my meat coated in the seasonings that I like, which is very basic, nothing too fancy here, I'm just going to go ahead, I'm putting this right in the pot on top of those onions that I put in earlier. And here, we'll put that over so you can see better. Can you see better? Yeah. How about this? Looks good. All right, next. I am going to get a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Maybe the equivalent of a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. I've made the mistake of adding too much of this into meals before, and it ends up tasting like ketchup. So don't do that. I'm also going to add about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. I've had good success with this helping tenderize the meat. It makes it it gives it just a teeny bit of flavor, but mostly it's tender and like the texture is a little bit softer than if you would not use it. I am going to put in 2 bay leaves on this one. I always say 2 and then I end up with 3, but I'm actually doing 2 this time. 2 bay leaves. I have this leftover dried thyme in my refrigerator. So I'm putting that right in there. I'm putting that whole thing. I love thyme. Use more or less to your own discretion. And then I like just a little bit of rosemary. We'll say 1/4 of a teaspoon rosemary. And then I'm going to get some broth that I unfortunately bought at the store because I ran out of chicken broth that I made. Beef broth from the store will work. Chicken broth will work. Vegetable broth will work. If you don't have any kind of boxed broth or homemade broth, you can use water. I have not honestly noticed a substantial difference if you use water. So the color turns out better if you use beef broth. But you're going to fill it like up to the shoulders of the meat, right? We're braising this meat technically, not boiling it. So I don't want to cover the meat with liquid. We just want it to be halfway to 3/4 of the way submerged. For my purposes, this 4-cup box of broth has done just the right amount. I have also this jar of Northwood's dried mushrooms. I don't think, unless you live in Wisconsin, you will be able to find these. But if you do, they're wonderful. And they're dried, and I just sprinkle them in. If you don't have dried mushrooms, you can use fresh ones. They're just as good. All right, now that we've got that, I also want to throw in a little bit of beef bouillon. Helps amp up that flavor. If you have it, great. If you don't worry about it. Leave it out. Okay, now here's the kicker. If you have any celery at home, I would throw that in now. I don't have celery. I ran out and I forgot about it. So we are going to skip the celery. But aside from that, we're basically ready to go. I'm going to put the lid on this bad boy and I'm going to throw it in the oven. I'm going to let that thing sit and cook for about 3 hours. And then I will come back to you and we'll show you the next steps. We'll put about 1.5 cups of water and our potatoes and carrots into the pot, put the lid on it, and cook it for a little bit longer, about an hour. Now this is how we're going to make a very quick cheater roux, or a gravy thickener. You can take equal parts flour, butter, and hot or warm water or broth, mix it all together until it becomes a paste. Here you see I've got about 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of flour. I needed to add about 2 tablespoons of hot water and kind of mush it together. I did end up doubling this because I had too much liquid in my pot, needed more thickener. This is about the consistency that you want, something along the lines of grade school paste. Now we've taken our pot out of the oven and put it onto the stovetop with a medium to low medium flame. We're going to get that liquid boiling again. You see the bubbles there. And then we're going to slowly start adding our gravy thickener into the pot, and we're going to add enough until we get that gravy to the texture that we like it. I like my gravy definitely a little on the thicker side, so you'll see I end up with kind of a thicker gravy at the end. Also, I have a pot of egg noodles boiling on the stove on the side, so that's what we're going to serve it with. And here we have our finished product. I've served it with some good sourdough bread and some egg noodles. And there you can see Ollie's little butt and Kevin's little face, and look at that steam. I have no idea what I just all said. All right. Let's start that over. Let's start that over.